Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So this week is my birthday week. My birthday is on June 11th and it falls on a Tuesday this week. But this entire week, so Monday through Friday, I wanted to have a little fun. So each day this week, I am going to be dropping a video talking about my favorite books from different genres. And so this first video you guys should see on Monday, we're going to be talking about my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books. So majority of these are fantasy except for one that is sci-fi. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail around the plot. I'm just going to give you guys a brief synopsis and then give you guys all the reasons why I have loved these books. So if I have a dedicated review or like a series review, I will have those linked down in the description bar in case you guys want to hear more, but we are going to go ahead and get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. I'm surprised I don't talk about this book as much as I should because I absolutely adored this story. It was such a surprising read when I finally got to it, but this one just follows the Matsuda family. They live on a peninsula that's called the Sword of Kaigen and a war is approaching. So one of the things that I really liked about this story is the characters. So from that family, we're following two main characters. We're following 14-year-old Mamoru and his mother Masaki. So Mamoru is learning to become a warrior. He's like in the process of training. And one of the things that I found really interesting when we first started this story is that he believed one thing about where he lived. And then all of a sudden, the new kid on the block comes in and tells Mamoru that everything he has learned about their peninsula is not true. And his world is like upended. So we're following him as he's trying to become like a better warrior, but also trying to figure out what's true and what's not true about where he lives. And then we have Masaki, his mother. She is a submissive wife. All she does is stays home to watch the kids. But we learn through flashback chapters that Masaki is a kick-ass warrior. It's not something that she practices anymore, but when this war starts to approach, she has to decide whether or not she's gonna just stay home and try to watch her family and take care of her family and make sure everyone's safe, or go out there beside her husband and fight with the rest of the men. And I just really loved how this book touched on like the power of motherhood, and it also just talked about how us women, we can fight alongside our men, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I also really loved the magic system in here because the magic revolves around the elements and how these warriors can control different elements like air, water, fire, that sort of thing. And I also liked the political intrigue in here. It's a lot of politics going on, and it's a lot of things that you're learning about this world from start to finish. The fight scenes in this are amazing. They will leave you on the edge of your seat. And this was just good from start to finish. And it is a standalone. So if you are somebody that really enjoys standalone fantasy books, this would be a good one to read. Another book that I absolutely love that I've read recently, I read this last year. This is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. It's book 1 in the Gentleman Bastard series. And in this one, we're following our main character, Locke Lamora, and his thieving crew, which is called the Gentleman Bastards. And basically, we're just watching them as they are committing a lot of cons because, like I said, they are a thieving crew. So again, one of the things that I really liked about this one is just the characters. I loved our main character, Locke Lamora, and then I loved like all of the banter he had with the different people within the crew. I also liked learning about the backstory and how this crew got together because this is told in a dual timeline. So we have the present where these men are trying to commit these cons, and then we have flashback chapters where we are seeing how these men were recruited in the Gentleman Bastards and like all of their training that they had to go through because each of them are proficient in different skills, which makes them a really good thieving crew. And so I just loved learning about all of them and then their dynamic when they are together. I also like the cons that they were committing because there is this one big con that they are trying to commit, but in between that, there are like all of these little cons and them trying to like change their identities, and there are like some fight scenes in here. I just loved all of that. And then I just feel like this particular story will give you everything that I think that you are looking for. So if you want like a little bit of adventure, if you want some humor, if you want to, I don't know, feel sad, if you want to feel happy while you're reading this story, I think that this will pull out every emotion that you could possibly think of because that's what it did to me. And I absolutely love this. I'm currently reading book 2. I'm doing that as a buddy read. And so far, I have been enjoying that one as much as I enjoyed this one. Next up, we have Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is book 1 in the Greenbone saga. Of course, absolutely love this one. So in this one, we're just following this world where they have Greenbone warriors. And so these warriors are trained to use Jade. And so Jade is something that you can use to enhance your abilities, but not everybody can use Jade. So the ones that are able to use Jade, they're trained how to use it proficiently. So then we're following these 2 clans. The main clan that we are following is the No Peak clan with the Call family. And so we're also seeing some things from their rival clan, the Mountain clan. And so over the course of like all of these books, is 3 books in this series, we are just seeing how these clans are fighting to take control of their city. So again, in this one, which is going to be a theme with all of these books, is I loved the characters. I love following the Call family and just learning about each of these siblings. And then we're also following some characters from their rival clan. And I loved all the characters. I loved how you find yourself rooting for these people and none of them are good. They're all doing bad things, but you find yourself loving them and wanting them to win. I also like the mafia feel of this story because we have the 2 competing clans. Now that is something that is not gonna work for everybody, but if you do like mafia stories, this one would be for you. And I also just really loved the magic system and how we get to learn how these people are using Jade. And I think the magic system really gets expanded upon when you go through each of the books. So I just loved everything about this. This is also one of those books where I feel like there is never a dull moment. The pacing might be a little slow, especially when you get to book 2, but it's giving you so much setup for the next book in the series. So I just enjoyed everything about this. And this is one of those books that after you read the series, I think you start to appreciate the events that led up to that finale even more. So then next up, I have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is book number 1 in the Villains series. Right now, there's only 2 books out, but I think maybe there's going to be a 3rd one. But I, again, obviously adored this story. When this first came out, I feel like everybody raved about this, but as the years have gone on, I don't see as like many positive reviews, but I absolutely love this. And so in this one, we're following 2 main characters, Victor and Eli. At the start of the story, they are currently roommates in college. They're working on their final thesis paper over people that can get supernatural abilities when they have a near-death experience. And so they decide that they want to do their paper over that, and they're trying to cause themselves to have a near-death experience so that they will have these powers. They do that successfully, but then there's an event that happens between Victor and Eli that sends Victor to prison. Then 10 years later, Victor is released from prison and now he's after Eli. Love the story, love the characters. These characters are morally gray. They're not the best people in the world, but for some reason, once again, you find yourself rooting for one over the other. And for me, I absolutely loved Victor. He is my favorite character. And I also like the side characters that Victor runs into when he is trying to hunt down Eli. I also liked how this story was told because it starts off with them in college, but then we get like these alternating chapters where it'll be like 2 days before, 1 year before, 6 hours before. So it's told in that sort of timeline. Again, that might not be something that works for everybody, but I loved it. It was really fast paced. It kept me engaged in the story from start to finish. And I had a fun time with this. This is one of the books that I have reread, and I don't reread a lot of books. I just feel like I never have time to do that. But this is a book that I'm actually trying to reread this year because I really want to annotate this book and highlight and underline some passages in here that I really liked. So yes, I absolutely love this book, and this is like one of my favorite books from this author. So next up, we have The Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book 1 in the Rhaeria Revelations series. This is actually the book that I read that got me into adult fantasy. I know a lot of people, when they suggest like where to start with adult fantasy, they always say Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. I honestly think this would be a great place to start. So in this, we're following 2 of my all-time favorite characters Royce and Hadrian. And at the start of this, they are a pair of thieves. And so they are sent to this castle to retrieve a sword, and like all hell breaks loose. And so throughout each of these books, the world is expanded upon, the magic used in this world is expanded upon. You are introduced to a lot of characters, creatures, and different adventures that these main characters, Hadrian and Royce, are on. So each of these books has 2 books within it. So you get 2 for 1 in each of these. And I think that they were very fast paced. And so I just think that these stories are a lot of fun. I think if you end up falling in love with Hadrian and Royce, you absolutely will love this series because it does revolve around them. I love their banter between each other. They are so different from each other. And then I also like the side characters that we meet along the way. Some of them are a hoot. And I think that the characters for me is what really sold me on the series. And again, it really got me interested in adult fantasy. So then we have Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This is the first book in the Mickey 7 duology, I guess is what we're calling that. And I love this book. Now, this is a book that I've talked about several times on this channel. I even have a dedicated review for this book and then the second book. So I will have that link down below. But in this one, we are following Mickey, and he is what we would call a expendable. He goes out and does these jobs that are extremely dangerous and have the possibility of getting him killed. Now, if he does get killed while on a job, what they do is they just bring back another iteration of him. So they make another copy of him. And so when this starts, we are on Mickey 7. And so there's a situation that happens where his friend believes that Mickey has died. And so when Mickey returns back to the base camp, because they already think that he's dead, they already made another copy of him. So we have Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 walking around. And so both of the Mickeys have to keep this a secret because there's never supposed to be 2 versions of Mickey at the same time. And then there's other stuff going on this planet that they're on. I really love this. I loved, again, with the characters, I loved our main character, Mickey. I thought he was hilarious. I love the banter that Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 had with each other. And then I also liked a little side plot that we had going on in here, because that side plot actually is more of the focus in book 2 than our main character Mickey. But the thing that sold me on this book was the character of Mickey 7. So that is why I absolutely love this. Now, I didn't think this was a perfect book by any means, because it is really science heavy, because this is the sci-fi book that I was talking about. Some of the science did go over my head a little bit, so that's why I couldn't rate this a full 5 stars, but everything else in here I absolutely love. So then the last book that I want to talk about, which I have also talked about this book as well a few times, and this is The Wings of Ebony by JL. This is the only young adult fantasy book that I have talked about within like this stack that I have here. So this is the first book in, I'm going to just say it was the Wings of Ebony series. I did not like the second book, but this first one I absolutely love. So in this, we're just following our main character, Rue. She has a younger sister named Tasha, and their mother was murdered. And so Rue was taken by her father back to his world, which is called Gizon, and then Rue's eyes is opened up to a world she knew nothing about with a whole magic system. And so one of the rules is that she is not supposed to go back to her hometown, which she did. And then her sister Tasha ends up finding out that Rue has magic and that there's a whole nother magic world, and now people are after her sister Tasha. I love this book only because of the relationship between Rue and her sister Tasha. It definitely reminded me of the relationship that I have with my younger sister. I just loved how protective Rue was over Tasha, and just like their whole dynamic, and then like their family dynamic actually kind of resembles the family dynamic between me and my sister. So I just felt really seen in this book. And then I did like the magic. I don't think it was something that was necessarily new, but I did like the magic in the other world that we learned. But I definitely just fell in love with the story because of the relationship between Rue and her sister Tasha. I would highly recommend, especially if you are someone that is a young adult reader, or if you know or have someone that you can recommend young adult fantasy to, this is definitely a good one to recommend. So those are all of my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books. Please, again, be on the lookout for the other videos that I will be releasing this week with some of my other favorites. And if I have any reviews specifically about any of the books that I talked about, I will have those videos linked down below. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.